What if the price of never being alone is that you never truly meet yourself? There's a subtle tremor beneath the constant noise of our lives, a deep vibration that you only feel when the world finally goes quiet. That feeling isn't loneliness setting in, it's your own core energy, remembering what it feels like to be full. We are trained from birth to reach out, to connect, to fill every empty moment. But we are rarely taught the power of pulling back. In that intentional withdrawal, a forgotten strength doesn't just reappear, it takes charge. The practice of abstinence is not a punishment. It is a promotion. It is the deliberate act of quieting the body's demands so that the soul's wisdom can be heard. When most people hear abstinence, they think of a locked door, of something forbidden, of a joy that's been taken away. But for those on the path of self-reclamation, abstinence isn't an empty room, it's the master key to the entire house. It is not about a lack of energy, but the strategic redirection of it. Think of your vital energy, your attention, your desire, your emotional output, not as something to be spent, but as capital to be invested. When you stop scattering it outward on every whim and impulse, you reclaim it. And in that potent act of reclaiming, the chaos subsides, the inner static clears, and a voice that was always there, your own deep knowing, finally gets the microphone. In ancient traditions, from Stoicism to Taoism, vital energy is never just used up, it is channeled. The mind, the body, the life force, they are not separate accounts, they are one dynamic, interconnected current. When you consciously withhold from one area, you are not losing that energy, you are rerouting it to another. When we abstain, not from a place of rigid control or guilt, but from a place of profound self-respect, we begin to build what Eastern traditions call a reservoir of inner power. This power, when it's not constantly leaking out through mindless indulgence or reactive emotion, concentrates inside you. And what does it do? It fortifies the very foundations of who you are, your awareness, your stability, your presence. Abstinence is the forge where your willpower is tempered into a tool of precision. Imagine your life force is like water in a leaky bucket, constantly dripping away through a dozen small holes. Compulsive checking of your phone, seeking validation, chasing fleeting pleasures. This is the state most of us live in, a state of perpetual, low-grade drainage. But what if you decide to plug those leaks? What happens when you build a deep, solid well instead? Suddenly you have a reserve. You can draw from it with intention. You have power that lasts. This is what happens to your desire. When you stop letting it leak away, it gathers into the focused force of will. When you manage it with wisdom, it transforms into unwavering presence. I knew a man, a brilliant creative director in his late 40s, who had built a life around being the center of attention. He was always surrounded by people, always in a relationship, always planning the next party. He confessed to me that he had never spent a single weekend alone in his adult life. He was terrified of it, but he hit a wall of exhaustion so profound that he said, "I feel like a ghost in my own life. I'm just a collection of other people's expectations." He made a radical decision. He took a 3-month sabbatical, not just from work, but from all social engagements, no dating, no parties, no posting online. He called it his great inward journey. He said the first few weeks were a living hell. The silence was deafening. He was face to face with an anxiety he'd been running from for decades. But he didn't run, he stayed. He started walking in the woods without music. He learned to cook for one, and slowly in that vast, uncomfortable quiet, he started to feel his own heartbeat again. He started to discern his own thoughts from the echoes of others. He said, "For the first time, I wasn't performing, I was just being." That period didn't give him anything new. It revealed what he had buried, his own judgment, his own values, his own deep well of calm. He later told me, "Now I connect from a place of choice, not need." It's the difference between being a lighthouse and being a ship lost at sea. This is the core of abstinence as energetic investment. You are not depriving your life. You are funding your soul. Neuroscience is now mapping what sages have known for centuries. Our habits, especially those tied to reward like emotional or sexual gratification, carve deep grooves in our brain's circuitry. When you repeatedly act on an impulse, you're paving a neurological highway that makes that action easier and more automatic. But when you consciously practice abstinence, you do something extraordinary. You give the brain a chance to build a new road. This is neuroplasticity in action, the brain's power to remold itself. Abstinence creates the space for your reward system, particularly the dopamine pathways that drive our cravings to rebalance. The result is not a life without pleasure, but a life with more control, sharper focus, and profound emotional stability. The self-restraint of the monk and the neuroplasticity of the lab are telling the same story. And why is this the foundation of all healthy relationships? Because when your inner world is stable, your presence becomes a gift, and presence is the soil in which intimacy grows. Not flattery, not chemistry, not even shared history, but presence. When you are anchored within yourself, your partner feels permission to be anchored too. When you don't need them to fix your inner storm, they can meet you on solid ground as a true equal. From this perspective, abstinence is not a rejection of connection. It is the ultimate preparation for it. It is the choice to cultivate your own inner garden before inviting someone in to walk through it. And in doing so, you develop a gravity, not the shallow pull of seduction, but the deep, quiet magnetism of a mountain, solid, serene, and utterly itself. There is a story from Zen tradition about a young swordsman obsessed with becoming the best. He was fast, talented, but reckless. His master saw that his mind was always racing, consumed by the desire for victory. One day, the master took him to a silent pond. "Look into the water," he said. "What do you see?" The student replied, "I see myself." The master then tossed a handful of pebbles into the pond. The surface exploded into 1,000 ripples. "Now what do you see?" The student strained his eyes. Nothing. The master waited. They stood in silence as the ripples slowly faded and the water grew still once more. And now, the student's face lit up. "My reflection has returned." The master nodded. "Your mind is the water. Your desire is the pebbles. Abstinence is not about killing desire. It is the discipline of waiting for the water to still, so you can see your true face. Only then will you know whether you fight for glory or for truth. The lesson is eternal. Without inner quiet, we are puppets of our own impulses. Without clarity, our relationships become a chaotic reflection of our own inner turmoil. When the body and mind are in constant motion, chasing, reacting, consuming, there is no space for the soul to transmit its signal. But when we choose stillness, when we discipline our impulses not with a hammer but with wisdom, a new channel of communication opens. Your soul starts speaking through the body, through intuition, through a felt sense of rightness, through a gut feeling about a person or situation. You start to notice when someone's energy doesn't match their words. You feel the unspoken tensions in a room. This isn't a superpower, it is your natural sensitivity restored. And sensitivity is not fragility, it is a profound form of intelligence. It is what allows you to move through life with grace, to know when to push and when to yield, to sense another's need before it becomes a crisis. This level of connection is only possible when your own inner world isn't a constant storm. Consider another example: a woman in her early 30s, navigating the world of modern dating. She felt perpetually anxious and depleted. She realized she was addicted not to any one person, but to the cycle of validatification, the reply, the promise of a date. She decided to take a 6-month dating fast. No apps, no casual texting, no what-ifs. She committed to rechanneling all that energy into her own life. She started painting again, a passion she'd abandoned. She took up a martial art. She learned to enjoy a Saturday night with nothing but a good book and her own thoughts. She described it as an emotional detox. At first, the silence felt like failure. But soon, she realized the constant search for a partner was a distraction from her own purpose. She wrote, "I thought I needed someone to see me. It turns out, I needed to see myself." This is the alchemy of abstinence. When you stop the noise, what you find isn't emptiness. It's yourself. In psychology, this directly relates to the development of interoception, the ability to feel your own internal state. Those who mindfully abstain report a heightened awareness of their own body, their breath, their posture, their subtle shifts in energy. This awareness is the bedrock of emotional regulation. You start to feel the spark of anger before it becomes a forest fire. You notice the knot of anxiety in your stomach before it hijacks your thoughts. You learn to respond to life, rather than just react to it. In relationships, this creates a sanctuary of safety. Abstinence, then, is a form of spiritual hygiene. Just as we cleanse the body to restore its health, we abstain from chaotic emotional patterns to give the heart a chance to heal, to clear out the residue of old hurts, lingering attachments, and inherited fears. And this cleared space is not a void. It is a sanctuary. It is where your inner compass is reset. In Chinese medicine, the kidneys are considered the seat of our core life energy, our Jing. They govern our willpower and our deepest reserves of stamina. A lifestyle of constant indulgence and scattered energy is said to deplete this core battery. But through conscious periods of abstinence, the battery is recharged, the will strengthens, and from that renewed strength, true clarity emerges, not just about what you want in a partner, but about what you want from your one precious life. So what does this look like day to day? It means when you feel that compulsive pull to check your phone for a message, you pause. When you feel the familiar pang of loneliness and the urge to immediately fill it with any connection, you pause. When your mind starts spiraling into fear, what if they don't like me? What if I end up alone? You pause. Not to shame yourself, but to listen with compassion, because beneath that frantic noise is a deeper truth, a core need that no one else can meet for you. When the body is held in stillness, the soul delivers its message: you are already complete. Your value is not determined by another's gaze. You are the sole authority on how to spend your energy. You can love deeply without dissolving. This is the point where abstinence transforms into freedom. Not freedom from other people, but freedom from your dependence on them. It creates a space where love can finally arise, not as a desperate grasp, but as a conscious offering. As we move from this foundation of redirected energy, a new capacity is born: the ability to be truly present. The stillness of the body unlocks the power of the soul. You discover that silence is not the absence of life, it is life intensified. To live in presence is not to retreat from the world, but to engage with it completely, without the filters of past pain or future anxiety. It is the discipline of being fully where you are. And presence is not a mystical state reserved for saints. It is the most vital and practical skill in any human connection, in any attempt to make another person feel truly heard. Presence is not a tactic, it is a frequency. You know when someone is truly present with you. Their gaze is steady, their body is calm, their energy isn't grasping or judging, it's open. In their presence you don't feel the need to perform or defend. You feel seen. This isn't magic, it's biology. Your nervous system is a sophisticated radar, constantly scanning its environment for cues of safety or threat in a process called neuroception. It happens beneath your conscious awareness. The moment you interact with someone, your body has already decided whether to trust or to tense, to open or to armor up. When you are present, your breath is deep, your posture is relaxed but upright, your voice is grounded. You are not lost in mental chatter. In this state, your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and recover system, is online. It sends a powerful, silent signal to your own body and to the body of the person you're with. It is safe here. In the landscape of relationships, presence is the invisible architecture of trust. It's not how clever your words are or how intense your feelings are that makes someone feel safe with you. It is the regulation of your own internal state. When your nervous system is calm, it invites other nervous systems into calmness. And this shared feeling of embodied safety is what allows for vulnerability, for authenticity, for real connection. I once heard a story from a child psychologist. A young boy was having severe tantrums and his parents were at their wits' end. The father insisted, "But I spend time with him. We play games. I'm physically there." The psychologist suggested an experiment. For 10 minutes each day, the father was to do nothing but sit on the floor with his son. No phone, no TV, no directing the play. Just being a quiet, attentive, available presence. The father agreed, skeptical. The first few days were awkward. But then the boy started bringing his toys closer to his father, leaning against his leg, chattering away. The tantrums began to fade. The father later said, with tears in his eyes, "I was always with him, but I was never really there. He didn't need my entertainment. He just needed me." This is the chasm between physical proximity and emotional presence. One is an appointment, the other is an attunement. And yet, presence is not an accident. It is cultivated. It is defended. And it is very often born from abstinence, not from people, but from the endless stream of distractions that pull us out of the present moment. The compulsive scrolling, the need to have an opinion on everything, the craving for constant input. True presence emerges when we intentionally create quiet space inside ourselves. It grows in the soil of stillness. In many martial arts, a student first learns to stand still and breathe before they learn a single strike. Why? Because the breath is the anchor of the mind. It is the bridge between the body and the spirit. A shallow, chaotic breath creates a scattered, anxious mind. A deep, steady breath creates a centered, powerful mind. This is as true in a difficult conversation as it is in a duel. Every argument is a test of your ability to stay present with your breath. Every moment of tension is a choice, to get swept away by the storm or to stay rooted in your center. Try this simple practice. The next time you feel a surge of emotion in a conversation, before you speak, just pause. Take one deep, feel it fill your belly, then let it go slowly. In that tiny gap, ask yourself, is my goal here to connect, or is it to be right? That one breath can be the difference between creating a wound and creating understanding. Modern science validates this ancient practice. Deep, conscious breathing stimulates the vagus nerve, which is the superhighway of your calming nervous system. It doesn't just lower your heart rate, it physically enhances your capacity for empathy. When you are calm, you can hear what's not being said. You can sense the fear beneath the anger. You can respond from your wisdom, not your wound. Presence also has a physical signature. Your body is always communicating. An upright spine, open chest, and relaxed shoulders send a signal of confident vulnerability. This isn't about posturing for others, it's a direct message to your own nervous system. I am here. I am grounded. I am safe. Others feel this instinctively, especially those who have been hurt. They know on a level deeper than words whether they can trust you with their heart. A mentor of mine once said, "The way you hold your fork is the way you hold your life." He meant that your smallest physical habits reveal your inner state. If your body is tense, fidgety, and distracted, so is your mind. If your body is grounded, alert, and at ease, your mind is clear. Posture and breath are not trivial details. They are the gateways to presence, and presence is the gateway to all meaningful connection. Let us now explore another critical dimension of this path, building your emotional spine through the practice of abstinence. Just as lifting weights creates physical strength by challenging muscles, intentional restraint builds emotional resilience by challenging our impulses. Every time you choose not to send the angry text, not to seek comfort in a numbing habit, not to chase a person for validation, you are doing a rep for your emotional core. And like physical power, this inner strength may not be visible, but it is always felt by you and by others. There's a damaging myth that emotional freedom means acting on every feeling that arises. That is not freedom, it is slavery to your own internal weather. True emotional freedom is the ability to feel everything, the rage, the grief, the joy, without being controlled by it. It is the capacity to hold the feeling, honor it, and then choose a response from a place of wisdom. This is where abstinence becomes a training ground, not just for the body, but for the heart. A young programmer I know was devastated after being laid off from his dream job. He felt a tidal wave of shame, anger, and fear. His immediate impulse was to spiral, to badmouth the company online, to drink too much, to retreat into video games for weeks. But he had been practicing meditation, and he remembered a core teaching: don't just do something, sit there. So he did. He allowed the feelings to surge without acting on them. He wrote them down. He went for long runs, letting the energy move through his body. He let himself feel the full force of the failure without judgment. After a few days, the intense emotional charge began to subside. What was left was not a void but a quiet clarity. He realized his identity was not his job title. He saw the layoff not as a personal failure, but as an unexpected doorway. That choice, to pause and process rather than react, is the very definition of building an emotional spine. In relationships, this strength is everything, because love without this inner discipline easily decays into attachment, and attachment, when driven by insecurity, becomes dependency. But when you have trained your emotional core through the practice of pausing, of choosing abstinence over impulse, you bring a gift to your relationships. You bring an offering, not a need. You bring presence, not a plea, and this offering has a silent power. It says to another person, I choose you, but I do not need you to regulate me. I want you, but I do not need you to complete me. My love for you is a decision I make from my own fullness. This is the foundation of a conscious partnership, but we should not romanticize it. This training is deeply uncomfortable. It is the conscious choice to sit with the fire of discomfort instead of immediately reaching for a distraction. It is the discipline of not replaying the argument, not checking their social media, not indulging in stories of victimhood. In these moments, the practice is simple but not easy. Pause, breathe, and witness the storm within you without becoming the storm. Just as a musician practices scales in private to be able to play beautifully in public, we must practice this inner stillness alone before we can engage with others from a place of harmony. This practice physically changes your brain. In psychological terms, every time you resist an emotional impulse, you strengthen the connection to your prefrontal cortex, the CEO of your brain, responsible for judgment, foresight, and self-control. Over time, you build more authority over your reactive, limbic system. It becomes easier to choose wisdom even when you're triggered. Abstinence is the gym where you build this capacity. Every time you refrain from an unhealthy emotional indulgence, you are rewiring your own mind. You are teaching yourself that discomfort is survivable, that intense feelings are just temporary energy, not a command to act. A Zen master once said, when the fire of anger rises, do not throw it at another, let it burn inward, let it become the fuel for your clarity. Then speak from the warmth, not the flame. This emotional alchemy is not suppression, it is transformation. You don't ignore the energy, you harness it, you allow it to refine you. Abstinence, seen this way, is not about being cold, it is about containment. It is the choice to become a vessel strong enough to hold life's intensity without shattering or spilling it onto those around you. This capacity is what makes a person truly reliable in love. Not just exciting, but safe. Not just passionate, but trustworthy. To achieve this level of self-mastery is not to turn your back on love, pleasure, or connection. It is to finally be ready for them. It is to bring to the table the profound strength of your own inner peace. It is to say, I am not here to take, I am here to meet you, as an equal, with presence, with patience, and with a love that endures. It is in this rich soil that true intimacy can grow, a love that is not a fleeting storm, but a steady, warming flame. And so we arrive at the core of this journey. When we speak of abstinence, we are not speaking of lack, of what has been taken away. We are speaking of space, the sacred space between a trigger and a choice, the fertile ground between a craving and an action, the quiet field between expectation and reality. When we speak of gaining relational clarity through abstinence, we are not advising you to become a hermit. We are inviting you to become a scientist of your own heart, to see your relationships clearly, free from the smoke of your own unmet needs. In a culture that is addicted to noise, to quick fixes, to performative connection, abstinence is a radical act of self-purification. It cleans the lens through which you see the world. More importantly, it polishes the mirror in which you see yourself. What are you truly seeking in another person? Are you seeking a partner, or are you seeking a distraction from your own life? Are you looking for connection, or for a cure to your loneliness? Without the silence that abstinence provides, you will never be able to tell the difference. There is a deep truth that is only found in solitude, but it is not the solitude itself that teaches, it is the awareness you bring into it. When the body's usual patterns are paused, the need for touch, the hunt for praise, the performance of personality, the soul finally gets a chance to speak, and its first words are not always what we want to hear. Sometimes, it reveals just how much of our desire for another is really a flight from ourselves. A woman once told me that after a string of painful breakups, she took a vow 1 year with no romantic entanglement. Not because she was bitter or had given up, but because, as she put it, I was tired of hearing my own life in a duet. I needed to learn the melody of my own song. She said, I needed to know how to make myself feel safe, without outsourcing the job. The first few months were brutal. She was haunted by loneliness and the fear of being forgotten. But as she persisted, a new feeling began to emerge around the 6-month mark, a quiet, unshakable self-possession. She no longer picked up her phone to numb the silence. She no longer chose her clothes based on an imaginary gaze. She stopped trying to be interesting, and simply allowed herself to be. She became clear, not just about the kind of partner she wanted, but about the kind of partner she was. This is the clarity that abstinence delivers. It is not an intellectual clarity born from lists and analysis. It is an embodied clarity born from simply being. In Eastern thought, the mind is often compared to a pool of water. When it is agitated by the winds of desire and fear, the bottom is obscured. Only when the surface becomes still can we see into the depths. Relationships are a perfect reflection of this. When you enter them from a state of inner chaos, you don't see the other person clearly. You see a projection of your hopes, your fears, your history. Clarity born from abstinence allows you to distinguish perception from projection. You stop looking for someone to rescue you. You start looking for someone you can walk beside, both of you whole. You don't need them to complete your story. You simply hope they will be a meaningful character in it. But this clarity is not just mental, it is physiological. A nervous system that is constantly bombarded with stimulation, sexual, emotional, digital, loses its ability to discern. Like a palate overwhelmed by spicy food, your emotional body becomes numb. It can no longer tell the difference between nourishing connection and addictive chaos. Abstinence is the reset button. It is a detox for your soul's receptors. It restores your ability to sense truth not just with your intellect but with your entire being. Think of how after a sugar fast, a simple apple tastes explosively sweet. The same is true for our hearts. When you abstain from the junk food of hollow compliments, performative intimacy and validation seeking, a single moment of genuine connection feels like a feast. But to get there, we must be brave enough to face what the silence reveals. For many, abstinence uncovers the degree to which our lives have been structured around avoiding ourselves. In that quiet, the old ghosts come out to play: the fear of being unworthy, the terror of being abandoned. These feelings are not your enemies. They are old wounds asking to be healed. If you are always running into the arms of another to quiet them, you will never learn which pains are yours to finally hold and heal. A man once described how his lifelong pattern of serial relationships finally broke during a 6-month period of celibacy. He said, "I realized I had never once chosen a partner based on their character. I only chose based on their availability. I was so terrified of being alone that I mistook any attention for affection, any presence for partnership." When he finally re-entered the world of dating, he was a different man. He was slower. He listened more than he talked. He paid attention not just to what was said, but to the feeling behind the words. Most of all, he listened to the quiet voice inside himself. Abstinence hadn't just given him self-control, it had given him discernment. And discernment is the beginning of all wisdom in love. Without it, we are leaves in the wind. With it, we are the tree, rooted and strong. And consider this final truth: the partner you attract is a mirror of the energy you project. If your energy is frantic, needy, and unclear, you will attract people who are drawn to that kind of chaos. But when your energy is calm, centered, and self-sourced, you become a magnet for people who are on the same frequency. Abstinence is the training ground for cultivating that powerful, coherent energy. It teaches you to be the source of your own love, so that the love you receive from another is a joyful addition, not a desperate necessity. In Chinese medicine, this is the cultivation of Jing, our foundational life force. It is diminished by excess and scattered attention, but it is replenished by stillness, by breath, by conscious restraint. A person with strong Jing has a natural gravity. They don't need to chase, they attract. In a relationship, this translates to an unshakable presence. People feel it. They might not know why they feel so safe and seen around you, but they do. And it is because you are no longer leaking your power. You are whole. The next step in this journey of self-mastery is deeply tied to the integrity of our relationships, the cultivation of sacred intention. This is not just knowing what you are doing, but knowing why. Most people stumble into connections driven by impulse, chemistry, or loneliness, blind to the energetic contract they are signing. But sacred intention illuminates the path. It brings consciousness into the connection itself. Every interaction becomes a choice, not just to feel good, but to exchange energy responsibly, not just to be understood, but to understand, not just to receive, but to offer, to grasp this. Abstinence is a prerequisite, because when you pause, you can finally ask the real questions. Is this attraction coming from a place of truth, or is it a familiar trauma response? Am I drawn to this person because they embody my highest values, or because they temporarily soothe my deepest insecurities? Sacred intention is about knowing the direction of the current. Where is this connection taking me? Where is it taking us? If it is guiding both people toward a more authentic version of themselves, it is sacred. If it demands self-betrayal from either person, it is a detour. The poet Rumi famously wrote, "Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it." Sacred intention honors this, but it also doesn't abandon wisdom at the door of chemistry. It understands that not all powerful connections are meant to be lifelong partnerships. Some are assignments, here to teach you a lesson and then release you. I knew a woman who, after a long period of celibacy and inner work, met a man with whom she had an explosive connection. The conversations were deep, the attraction was immediate. The old version of her would have dived in headfirst, but the new version, guided by sacred intention, waited. She observed, and she noticed a pattern. His words were beautiful, but his actions were inconsistent. He would be intensely present, then emotionally disappear for days. In the past, she would have tried harder, believing she could fix the inconsistency with her love. But now, she honored the connection for what it was, a powerful mirror. But she honored her own need for stability more. She stepped back, not with anger, but with clarity. In doing so, she maintained her own integrity. This is a direct fruit of abstinence. It fine-tunes your inner guidance system. It teaches you that your own peace is not a currency to be traded for moments of pleasure. It teaches you that your relationship with yourself is the template for all others. To cultivate sacred intention is also to be mindful of the small rituals of connection. How you listen, how you touch, how you show up, not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. The highest form of intimacy is a spiritual discipline. It is not something you find, it is something you build with devotion. And devotion is impossible without discipline. There is a Zen teaching about how to approach any encounter. Enter with 3 treasures: attention, to truly see the other; respect, to honor their sovereign soul; and emptiness, to not allow your past to color the present moment. Imagine if we entered our relationships this way. Abstinence is the practice that prepares us for this. It clears away the ghosts of past hurts, past failures, past selves. It creates an empty, sacred space, and into that space, true intention can flow, clear, steady, and life-giving. The soul is never in a hurry. It waits for the water to still. And when it finally speaks, it doesn't shout commands. It offers clarity. This is what turns abstinence from a practice of deprivation into an act of devotion. You are no longer focused on what you are giving up. You are focused on what you are making yourself ready for. To walk this path is not to become cold, it is to become profoundly warm, but wisely contained, not closed off but discerning, not hard but whole. In this way, abstinence becomes the ultimate act of love, for yourself and for the person you will one day meet. It is a sacred vow: I will not abandon myself, I will not dilute my soul to be palatable. I will not settle for a love that costs me my peace. And from that grounded place, a real love can finally take root. Not the kind that flashes and burns out, but the kind that grows deep into the soil of your being and blossoms, season after season, with strength, serenity, and soul. When the body is quieted, the soul speaks. Not in words, but in a deep, resonant knowing. This journey through the landscape of abstinence was never about denial. It has always been about retrieval. Retrieving the person you are when no one else is around. retrieving the values you hold when no distractions are pulling at you, retrieving the fundamental truth that your worth is not for sale and your peace is not negotiable. In the stillness of abstinence, you begin to hear what the world's noise tries to make you forget, that you are not a half waiting to be completed, you are a universe waiting to be explored. That love is not a prize to be won, but a frequency to align with. That the deepest intimacy is not the merging of bodies, but the meeting of two whole souls. You have learned that every chosen moment of abstinence, be it emotional, digital, or sexual, is not a subtraction but an addition of self-respect, an addition of sacred intention, an addition of wisdom in your own nervous system, which is no longer hijacked by impulse but tuned to the frequency of peace. You now see that relationships don't start when you meet someone. They start in how you live before you meet them. They begin in the inner space you cultivate, the integrity you defend, the energy you embody. Conscious abstinence is how we build a home within ourselves worthy of a noble guest. As the great masters have always taught, self-mastery is not about force. It is about harmony, a harmony between body, breath, emotion, and spirit. Through abstinence, you are not becoming less of yourself. You are becoming more concentrated, more potent, more radiantly present. So when you next choose silence, choose it not from a place of fear, but from a place of reverence, for your own journey, for your own energy, and for the caliber of love you are finally ready to receive. Let that stillness be your guide. Let it sharpen your discernment. Let it consecrate your intention. Let it prepare you not to hide from the world, but to walk into it with the quiet strength of someone who needs nothing from it to be utterly and completely whole. This is the ultimate truth of abstinence. It is not the rejection of desire, it is the enthronement of it. It is desire made conscious, sacred and whole. And from that sacred ground, true connection is finally born.